It is so good to have you aboard with me. My name is Mr. Gravy, and today we're going to be doing a hitting tips video where we talk about how to read pitches out of the hand, how to get proper timing, and on top of that, finally, a good approach that you can have and use to be successful in MLB The Show 21. I don't want to waste any more time, so welcome to the Dynasty. This episode not being numbered, it's not episode 13. This is kind of an in-between episode where I just kind of wanted to go through some of the things that I'm doing as I go up the ranks here. If you're looking to see any of this in action, episode 12, which was the last episode before this, is the one I would recommend checking out because we kind of did this approach to a T. So let's start with looking at pitches out of the hand, how we can learn how to read them, and then we can go from there. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at Gerrit Cole, and the reason for that is a lot of people say, well, Gerrit Cole is not a good pitcher because he's very easy to read. Okay, so his release point is right there. The question really comes down to what happens after the release point and how can you read it best. So with fastballs, this is particularly a fastball middle of the plate, just slightly inside to Tatis, and here we go. So this fastball, it starts right at the top there where I'm going to put a line, and you're going to see it stay just in the same plane. If anything, it's going to start coming down slightly, and it's going to go right middle of the plate. So now let's take a quick look at a slider. A slider is going to have the same release point as the fastball does, same place right there, but the difference is it's going to shoot just above that line, and it's going to start then after going above the line, darting to wherever it's going to break to. So that's a quick way to identify a slider. If you're struggling more with breaking balls this year compared to maybe MLB 20, or if you're new to MLB 21 and you're wondering why these breaking balls are so hard to hit, this is way less pronounced than it used to be, and so it's a little bit harder to read than it has been in years past. I think it's a good change because pitching was quote unquote too hard because everything would get hit out, and that was a big chunk of the reason for that was because you couldn't really throw off-speed pitches with any big effectiveness. So we'll take one more look at that slider. It goes up and then starts breaking down versus the fastball, which went straight at you, and if anything starts to come down when it comes through. So let's also quickly take a look at a curveball as well. It's going to have the same release point. It's going to shoot way up and come down. This is right at the very bottom of the zone. It just catches the very bottom of the zone for a called strike 3. And so this pitch kind of does the same thing. It's the same exact release point, but it shoots up first, way up, straight up in the air, and then comes down. So that's how you can recognize a curveball out of the hand. Let's take a look at Corbin Burns and see why sinkers are so good and why they have been so good for a while. So here's a sinker to Salvador Perez. His release point is right there, just kind of a little bit underneath Gerrit Cole's. And look at how this sinker goes just slightly over that release point section where it kind of clips into it and then comes down in and hard at you. And I'm going to compare that to his slider on the outside corner. Watch this. So it's going to have the same release, as you can see, as the sinker, and it's going to kind of barely jump up just like that. It's going to barely jump up and then start breaking down and away. And then all of a sudden, this pitch goes from being a slider to, oh no, that's a sinker in on my hands or right down the middle, and you're late on it, and before you know it, you've popped out. Whereas with a slider, it's going to kind of do the same thing, but it's going to tail away from you. So how do you combat that? Well, you need to be able to read pitches out of the hand, and the best way to do that is to take a look at the middle of his cap where the logo is, or the bill of the cap, so that when he has his release point right there, you can see the ball is so close to the bill of his hat, or it's near the middle logo. Every pitcher is slightly different, but your eyes don't have to adjust as far. If you're looking at the belt, or if you're looking towards the middle of the kind of area, the screen, you have to work harder and look further, which may seem like not a big deal to you, but when you get especially up into the higher levels where the pitch speeds are faster, you will see that looking bill of the cap and having a longer time to read the ball goes a very long way, especially in this game, for picking up pitches. So let's talk about timing and the way you should be approaching your timing. Okay, so I'm going to show two different swing styles, and we're going to start with Jose Abreu, who has more of a immediate step to the pitcher. This is why you see guys who struggle with kind of short stride swings versus guys with big leg kicks like Mike Trout, who I'm going to show right after this. So when you time up a fastball, there's a couple ways to do it. You can either be really prepared to go and ready to swing, and right when the pitcher front foot lands and this ball starts to release, you should be getting ready to swing as a hitter. And then once it hits about this point on your screen where it's getting closer to you and it's about right in that in-between area, that's when you should start swinging. Or if you're like me, you kind of get to a point where in your peripheral vision you're watching your hitter stride. This is a good time fastball that is just ever so slightly past perfect, and it actually goes all the way to the wall. But with a guy like Jose Abreu who has a short, quick stride, it's important that as soon as that back heel of this hitter hits the ground, you should be starting your swing. And that's exactly what you see right here. As soon as that heel hits the ground, the swing starts. And when that swing starts, it allows you to have the best timing on that fastball. All of the hitters in this game, no matter what, time up the pitcher's motion properly, which means they're pretty much always timing up fastballs. Now, that is a little different than last year where they timed the pitch up every time and they would start early on an inside fastball versus start later in their stride on an off speed. It was kind of a little bit of an exploit, but not anymore. Now they pretty much just time up the motion with consistency. So this really works well with fastballs, but it's a good general rule of thumb because it's much easier to adjust down and slow yourself down than it is to speed up. So as soon as that heel hits the ground, the swing starts, and it gets a really good outcome here where it goes all the way to the warning track. Let's take a look at Mike Trout, who has more of a pronounced leg kick, which are really nice, and these hitters are probably the easiest to time pitching motions with. So when that pitch starts coming in, this is another fastball that he hits just in front of the perfect timing. I ended up hitting it into the ground, but that's okay. As soon as this heel hits the ground, I was, like I said, just a touch early. You can see he actually starts his swing right about there, just before the heel hits the ground, which is that just early in front of the fastball. And he hits it hard. It's a hard hit ball, which is really your goal in this game. The more hard hit balls you have, the more better outcomes that you will receive. So as soon as that foot starts hitting the ground, I'm swinging. This is especially useful for an inside fastball that you really want to get out in front of. As soon as you see that foot hitting the ground, you should start that swing and you'll hit the ball hard. Okay, let's talk about PCI placement and timing. One of, I think, the biggest ways to hit well in this game is to time your swings with your PCI movements and to stay out of being a jerky PCI player. A lot of guys like to get just underneath the ball or overshoot to the corners because they see a breaking pitch, they know it's going to be on the corner, so they jam their stick to get there. But the PCI is more sensitive, I think, than you think, and you have a little bit more time than maybe you are perceiving that you have. And so if you time your swing with a slow stick movement, you're going to tend to put the ball in play a lot harder because your PCI is going to be more square. Now, the way I personally do that is I do hold my controller a little weird. I hold it in kind of like a claw format. Every once in a while, if I'm not feeling the claw format, I'll use the ball of my thumb on the thumbstick. But overall, I'm trying to focus on having short movements with my PCI because overshooting the ball is so extremely easy in this game. Okay, so I wanted to showcase this with Lucas Giolito and Acuna because a lot of people really like the Acuna meta and swing right now.
Yeah, if he's
all right, so we're sitting middle.
Stuff all game. The offense better step up.
Slight movements with your PCI and good timing is the most important thing. I want to be early. Perfect. So we've got a pitch up in the strike zone, and I kind of just barely move my PCI up towards it, and it's something I'm able to hit well and pull out of here in this case. So you can see I did get the top of the PCI there, but that's actually a decent outcome with a guy who hits home runs. Anything up on the top dot of your PCI or middle dot of your PCI, you're going to have the best exit velocity with, especially if you're early. That pitch is outside and a little bit up, and I pulled it because I'm early on that pitch and I'm ready to hit a fastball. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Short, stocky movements. You don't need to jam that stick to the upper corner, because if you jam that thumbstick to the upper right-hand corner like that, you're just going to pound that into the dirt, shoot it up the middle, right into the shift. You're going to be out of the inning. So I hope this helped a little bit. If you're having any more difficulties, I am doing this series on YouTube. I do stream, but it's a little spotty right now because I'm focusing on this series. If you really want to see this in action, I do have episode 12 up right now, which is where I kind of really go into my approach, where I'm taking all throughout the early part of the game, and then as the middle part of the game comes, I start taking a little bit more of an aggressive approach, and it really pays off for me. It's something that I call war of attrition at the plate, and it's all about getting a read on the other opponent's pitcher and taking as many pitches as I can to read all of the pitches out of their hands, see what kind of break those pitches have, and then be able to adjust to it as the game goes on. It's the best way, in my opinion, to hit. And when you face a good relief pitcher, sometimes you don't have as much time, but if you're able to take a pitch or two every at bat, it kind of goes a long way for your timing and your plate approach. So I hope this helped a little bit. If you want to ask any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll try to explain things as best I can. Hope this helps somebody out there. And as always, happy hitting.